What's up, and welcome back to Nowstalgia Pod, giving you your weekly look what's going on in pop culture. My name is Pat Sheehan, joined by my co-host. He looks malnourished, Dave Martin Swagger. Dave, how you doing, man?
Is that a Tyler reference?
Oh yeah.
Okay, I was
We
gonna say.
well, what's your name? It's
Let's
a good
go,
song.
baby. Let's go. What a weekend we've just had.
Yeah, I
Music
mean,
drops. The box office saved once again. It's a good time.
yeah, it's funny because we've been doing our ranking podcast, and we were like, Tyler the Creator, dropping this new track. Let's get this rankings done. An artist we've been talking about, and then he's like, oh, I'll also grace you right away with "Call Me If You Get Lost," his new album, which we're going to be talking about here in a second. Very exciting, and just within that time too, we also had her drop her debut album. Who would have thought?
You don't say. Multi Grammy winner debut
Yeah,
album.
probably going to be a new artist at the Grammys this year. Her and Jay Z up for the that award. But anyways, if you want to follow, go watch those ranking videos. Tyler the Creator, J Cole. Go watch our reviews of some of the artists that we're going to be talking about today. If you want to catch up on some of their older stuff before we talk about them, hit that subscribe on youtube.com/nostalgiapod or go to soundcloud.com/nostalgiapod where you can find all the ways to listen to the podcast. And Dave, we are starting off with an artist we've talked about before, Ski Mask, the Slump God, out of the clouds, dropping his newest mixtape, Sin City. What do you think?
Been a minute since Ski Mask dropped anything. We talked about his most recent mixtape, Beware the Book of Eli, as well as his debut album, Stokely, back in 2018, because that's when they came out. There's been nothing since the end of 2018 from Ski, apart from a handful of features and some like snippets and stuff. It's been a while. Definitely not the norm for a ascendant rapper in his early 20s,
Mhm.
and yet Ski Mask seemed to take some time off. Maybe that was also COVID induced. I'm not sure. But now he's back with a quick little taster, and he says we have his proper second album still to come soon, which is exciting to hear. He does not plan on having a hiatus or wait as long as this again, which is awesome. But yeah, it's a new ski project. It's been a while.
Yeah, and when you sent it to me on Instagram, that was how you shared the news with me. With the cover, I was like, okay, he's going for a little Sin City. What's that? A 2006
Hmm.
movie, very
Oh five,
stylized.
yeah, Frank Miller.
2005.
That's exactly what he's referencing.
Yeah, and it it kind of set the tone for what I was expecting with this, and I think it really delivered on that tone. It's Ski Mask always is kind of unique in himself. I mean, I think what we liked about some of his music is that not a lot of other artists sound like him completely, and that kind of continues, at least in my opinion, on this because while I think there are some tracks that are a little maybe a little more in that traditional rap lane. There's still some moments that I felt like were had that like dark edge to them. He comes across very very hard on this. I thought, and overall, I just thought it was a good mixtape, kind of wetting our whistle for more to come. How did you feel about listening to Sin City though?
Yeah, I agree. It's not anything new from Ski Mask, and I guess I should have just had different expectations because I was slightly, I guess, let down by the fact that it's just more Ski Mask. Like there, I don't think he was super ambitious with this. It's more like a hey, remember me kind of thing.
Mhm.
Um, Thinking back on Stokely, Stokely had like 3 platinum hits, but when you think about what those hits are, it's Faucet Failure, Foot Fungus, and Nuketown. Not exactly mainstream rap sounds,
No.
and he's largely continuing that kind of thing on this. I just don't think there's songs that will be as popular as the songs I just mentioned on Sin City. But a song like "The Matrix," get those hard-hitting 808s from Ronnie J, very
Yep.
reminiscent of what you expect from Ski Mask songs, and he kind of has that his trademark flow where he like does a lot of heavy ad libs. Um, But yeah, I think for me, The Matrix and then also Fire Hazard, again, another good example of his flow. Those are the songs that stood out to me, but I don't think there's anything that's going to resemble his most popular songs in this. So we'll just have to hope that album two delivers more ambition, more promise, because we know he's talented, but this kind of feels like running in place a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. I think those two tracks you like mentioned are probably the two that feel uh, most in line with kind of what you expect from Ski Mask. Although I feel like a song like Merlin's Staff, so is something where he's doing something a little different. He's trying something a little more like groovy. He's got some interesting production choices. There's like some wind instruments in the background, like a whistle kind of. So he's adding some elements, maybe starting to test some things out. I also thought the second track, Dr. Seuss, just like a old school type like rap song where it's like this pretty simple beat, and he's just going the whole time, taking his time with the flow, and I thought it was pretty good. So overall, I was like, this is a this is fine. Like I'm not necessarily blown away by it, but I'm like, it's
Mhm.
nice to have Ski Mask back, I guess.
Yeah, totally. So hype for second album. Seems like
And
he
now,
wants to be more active again. That's great.
absolutely. And now, Dave, we're gonna transition from Ski Mask to a counterpart of Ski Mask that many people associate, Lucy Dacus, or I believe it's actually Dacus. The
I think it
one
is
of the
Dacus, actually.
is it?
I looked up an interview she did, and she said Dacus, so I
All
think
right.
that's right.
I'm gonna trust Lucy Dacus on pronouncing her name correctly. Um,
One would think.
yeah, dropping home video. And the last time we talked about her was obviously Boy Genius, the trio of Phoebe Bridgers, Lucy Dacus, and Julian Baker, who we
There you
just
go.
talked about. And yeah, this is interesting. This is a bit of a concept album in a sense where she's really looking at this like, I don't know if nostalgic is the right word, but this memory of a time when being a Catholic girl in the early 2000s, she was kind of told not to like consume certain media by her pastors and things like that. So there's some like interesting elements to it, and she's obviously kind of reminiscing about you know teenage puberty type times. So there's a lot of different emotions that come up, I think, throughout. But I was interested as we were going through because she tries some things on this album, and I was like, this doesn't seem like an album Dave would like, but does she do enough here to keep Dave's interest? So how did you feel about it?
Yeah, definitely not my cup of tea usually,
Mhm.
Lucy Dacus. I think we did not talk about her second album, Historian,
No.
from 2018, but if you look on streaming, her most popular song is from that project, Night Shift. And you listen to that, and to me, it's like, I get the idea. This is very reminiscent of modern indie rock to me. Like this is what I expect. And then listening to home video, it's more or less still what I expect from a genre that usually isn't for me. It's pleasant. It has moments of really good songwriting, but the singing is largely understated as it's more of a focus on the singing.
Mhm.
But as you said, there are a moment or two that stand out just for the uniqueness. I think in general, was it Woke Up? Or no, sorry, First Time, the third track. I like that because that woke me up with those really heavy guitars. I was like, the first two tracks, I was like, all right, these are pretty slow indie songs, not my thing.
Mhm.
And then like she starts strumming, I'm like, all right, thank God. But I
Yeah.
think the clear head scratch or whatever is Thumbs because oh no,
Mhm.
sorry, is Partner in Crime because of the auto tune, which I would
Yeah.
never would have suspected from Lucy or Julian Baker or anyone in this space, you know?
Yeah. It. I had that written down as a song I wanted to really bring up to see how that worked for you because I think there's probably a lot of people who look at that song and, like you said, it's non-traditional for this style. So it's
Hmm.
like, I'm not sure how that would work. I actually thought it worked out pretty well. It kind of created this like haziness and like a real like recollection of a dream, in my opinion. So I felt like it was like an okay touch. Definitely unique, for sure. Um, I agree with you about first time. I think that was like the first song that really popped out because it was more upbeat to me. Um, But the end of VBS reminds me a lot of Night Shift in a sense because the song is a bit meandering and kind of taking along, and then like the last like 30 seconds or so, it's like this really, I don't know, like this build up to this like hard guitar, like distorted guitar, like shredding kind of, and then like going back to the chorus, which I thought was pretty good, and definitely caught my ear as well. But I think the hard part is we've had albums now from Julian Baker, which we thought was pretty good. We've had uh, Phoebe Bridgers
last year.
last year, and I think I've gone back to Phoebe a lot more, and she obviously is like the anointed one within indie
Mhm.
female indie rock. It seems,
Definitely the most popular of this whole crew, of which there are many.
but even like Soccer Mommy,
Yeah.
is I think just doing stuff within indie rock that I find a little bit more interesting and a little bit more ear popping than this
Definitely.
album. And I left a lot of the songs just kind of being like a bit of a yawner or didn't really not memorable for me, and that's just
Yeah.
kind of how I left with this. But the thing is, you always go back and like, oh, these are always really competently made songs, like always quality.
Right.
So
Yeah. I think that's his thing. It's a Matador Records album, and it sounds like one.
right,
You know,
yeah,
like apart from a very rare use of autotune.
mhm,
Otherwise, it's kind of in line with expectations. This has to really be your kind of shit. I feel like to get a lot out of you. Um, and she's not quite as sad lyrically as Julian, but she
yeah,
also, I think, she doesn't quite have like the dry humor or like the
no,
bite of Phoebe. Not to just
no,
compare her to all her contemporaries, but like I guess she's kind of in the middle of the Boy Genius group to me, you know.
yeah,
And
yeah.
like
It's
I
funny.
guess she has like funny lines too, but it's just a kind of a more softer overall sound that don't quite jump out to me as
Mhm.
much. But maybe to other people they do.
Yeah, and in some ways, I think it's like almost unfair that we are comparing her to them because obviously they're all distinct artists in their own right. But it's easy to lump them together because not only are they in a band together, but their style is very similar. And something like Kyoto stands out to me so much more than anything on this, just because it's taking more risks and is like it's swerving when you're expecting Phoebe just to be sad. It's like this upbeat, almost like
Hmm.
fun song, which you don't expect going to these albums. So I don't know. I think this is still worth listening to if you dig this genre, but I think there are some better releases out there. But shout out to Lucy. I like her, and I hope Boy Genius makes more music together in the future.
Yeah, how about a
That's what
full
I think
album?
of.
Maybe that's coming up. They've all released their own solo albums post the Boy Genius EP. Now it's time to bring it all together once more and take over.
Bring it all together and then tour so I can see you. But
Mm,
Dave, it's time to jump to an artist that, man, we've been waiting for. I think this drop since 2019's Diaspora. That's GoldLink with Haram! Exclamation
exclamation
point.
point.
Yeah, woo. Um, and yeah, Diaspora was one of our favorite records of 2019. I think
Definitely.
when I've gone back to it, I've always been impressed just with how it blends a bunch of different genres together, how it flows so succinctly, and it feels just like a groovy kind of dance party. Listening back to it. At least that's how I experienced it. Just to kind of set the stage, Diaspora for you when you think about it, like what stands out?
Yeah, it's definitely the molding of sounds, right? GoldLink stands out for like that traditional DMV rap flow, but he on Diaspora, which was his debut album per like label definitions, but he had a bunch of mixtapes out before that. He managed to bring in all those other sounds, notably Afrobeat, dancehall,
Yeah.
and make something really cool. There's a lot of really memorable songs in Diaspora, like "You Say" with Tyler and "Joke Ting," and
Mhm.
a lot of Zulu screams. Was it?
Mm.
There's a lot of memorable stuff there, memorable moments there. And it's funny because thinking about GoldLink as an artist and then juxtaposing it with GoldLink as like a member of the rap world, where he's quite messy and not the most popular. Like he has some enemies because of things he said. GoldLink, like he openly is beefing with Check West that comes up on Haram. He said some things about I believe Mac Miller in the past. Like so some people don't like GoldLink, but it's kind of unfortunate that that's the way he's perceived by many because I think he's making a lot of interesting music, and I did not see a lot of press for Haram, which I find very disappointing.
Yeah, this snuck up on me a bit as well, and I think just to kind of switch gears when, or I guess move into this album, I was very much looking forward to this, and I felt like there were moments on this that caught some of that high of Diaspora, but Ram falls short for me, and I think it's almost a bit due to the sequencing of the album. Because that for me, listening to this, the first like 5 or 6 tracks kind of have that same feel of Diaspora. The songs all flow together; they transition really well. It's bringing in different sounds, different vibes, but blending it really well. And then I think it's when you get to Twin, yeah, Twin and Girl Pacino for me, the
Hmm.
album just seems to lose a lot of momentum, at least upon my the one listen I was able to get through for it. And then I felt like it didn't never picked it back up completely. And there are some other moments after that that really stood out, but those two just have like a lighter sound to me, maybe slowed down a little bit, and I just wasn't able to get back into it as much. What was your experience with Haram?
Yeah, it's definitely all over the place, right? Um, and that kind of struck me early on. He's like his vocals, Golding's vocals are really distorted. I was
Mhm.
like, huh, that's not usually something I expect from you. Like, if this was a ski mask song, it would make more sense to me. And I didn't think it was working all that much on like extra clip where like you told me Emily Chapa was featured, but I didn't notice, to put it bluntly. But then it starts to, I think it starts to change. I think I run Terradome for me, and you get on was it the next song Evian. You
Yep.
have like more of a deep house beat, and he's done a lot of that kind of stuff before. Remember, he was featured on K Tronada's last album, Bubba, for
Yeah.
example. He's used electronic production before. I think he really rides it well. I like that song. But then at that moment as well, thinking about Diaspora, the Afrobeat, the dance hall melding was really, I think, present and like focused throughout the album. That's why the album was so good. On Haram, he does start to bring in some other stuff, but it's not nearly as focused or consistent. I think this time it just happens to be that he brings a lot of English rappers on here,
Mhm.
and we get some like UK drillers and stuff, and it's like, and I'm not even the most famous kind either, which I think is really admirable. And I'm like, huh, I actually really like this. Like GoldLink once again playing nice with others and kind of meeting them on their turf. And later on, I think is where you really get the best example of that would be Wayne Perry, where Lukey World, someone I was not familiar with, absolutely burns the fucking place down. Like I
Yeah.
think that song is a goddamn banger.
Yeah. I agree. I think those rappers really bring such a distinct sound that I was not expecting to hear. But the second half, when it does pick back up, it's usually when they're coming on and just
Yeah.
totally killing it. Yeah, Wayne Perry is probably the highlight to me of that, and I really liked Evian, which I think you
Mhm.
chatted out. I thought that was good. Also, Flo Million, him trading verses on Raindrops stood out to me a lot,
Yep.
just for the way that they interplayed together. Um, but yeah, I think like I just left this being like anything GoldLink seems to be trying. Even the first couple of songs you mentioned, Extra Clip and 202, like the distortion actually worked for me just because it totally caught me off guard and was like, I was not expecting him to go in this direction, and it kind of gives this like I don't know, like I'm trying to think of like the best way to describe it, like this new age drill type vibe almost to it a little bit. It's
Hmm.
like the beat is kind of like you're just riding it, and it's very much like I don't know. It just felt like nothing I had really heard much recently, so it stood out to me. But any other tracks or moments on the album that you liked?
Yeah, I mean, I thought some other songs were okay. Don't Cry Over Spilled Milk, uh, Thump Chronicles, which again, more UK on that one. But
Mhm.
yeah, and I like the Flo Milli feature, as you mentioned. On the other hand, though, like on Twin, you have Rich the like, why do you have Rich the Kid on this? I didn't make any sense to me. Like, he's not bringing anything to the table. You think
Yeah,
RCA coulda gave you a little more money to get someone else? Like, I don't know. That was like of all the ambition you had on Diaspora, and even on this, we're like Haram clearly not as strong as Diaspora, but there's still some things tried, some new ideas, which
yeah,
is all we can ask for.
for
But
sure.
why are you wasting a song with Rich the Kid? Like, again, one of the most generic of Atlanta trap rappers there are. Like,
Yeah.
just like there's things you like, and there's things that kind of scratch your head on Haram. But hey, I just wish more people were listening to it. It doesn't feel like this is on the radar at all.
No, no, it doesn't. I wanted to just talk about Wild and Lethal Trash real quick, mostly just because I love hearing Santa Gold, but is there ever a track she's on that doesn't just become a Santa Gold track?
That's
Like,
a good
I
point.
feel like she just is such a force and such a unique artist that anytime I hear her, I'm just like, oh, this is now a Santa Gold song. And
Right.
even the production on that is just like it's glimmery, it's glitzy, it reminds me of something that would have been off her earlier album. So
Then again, there's not a lot of Santa Gold features, so you got to
there's
give him
not.
credit.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I give him credit for trying. So um all right, Dave, it's time to talk about it though. The long awaited Her debut album finally dropped. Kind of from the clouds. I think she just kind of
Yeah,
announced it on Twitter one day, right?
yeah. I did not know this was coming. Um,
Yeah.
but again, you look on Spotify, and there was the self-titled album and the compilation album of the two I Used to Know Her EPs.
No, no, no. Those aren't albums, Dave.
So we're told, you know,
Yeah.
like I feel like Her has made such a big jump in the mainstream music world, namely just getting tons of Grammy love for going on what, 3 Grammys at this point. Obviously,
Yeah.
she won what was it, record of the year, was it, for I Can't Breathe this year, or was it song of the year? I forget. Her and
It was
Billy won those
record, I
two
think.
awards. I forget which one is which. But obviously that's the song where the songwriting is, yeah, so it must have been song here, yeah, because the songwriting of that song very prescient given
Yep.
everything that happened with George Floyd and protests for racial equality last year in 2020. Not the first song I would have thought of though when it comes to that kind of thing. The Bigger Picture by Little Baby was certainly more popular, but of course, we're all very privy to something like Walking in the Snow from Run the
Hmm.
Jewels. Alas, Her is the Grammy darling, so Her's the one who wins. But I think, as everyone has acknowledged all along, she's incredibly talented.
Oh yeah.
We know she's a multi instrumentalist, piano, guitar. She writes, she sings, she does everything. She makes songs for movies, she makes songs for herself, she does features. She's everywhere, she's doing everything. And now we have the debut album, which I don't feel like serves any added purpose because she has long since debuted. This is one of the very weird old definitions to me.
Yeah. So when this dropped, I was like, oh yeah, her. We've talked about her quite a bit on the pod. I think we reviewed the first half of I Used to Know Her,
Yeah.
and we just were like, she's a good artist, someone to be looking out for. A lot of talent here, and obviously we've talked about her when it comes to awards. And man, I gotta say, whenever she performs at these award shows, she goes off on like a Prince like guitar solo, and it's just fucking epic, and I love it. And I'm like, yeah, this is why she's anointed by the Grammys, because she's in line to be kind of like Prince, where it feels like she has that potential, or at least to be an artist in that stratosphere. But I gotta say, this debut album, bit of a snoozer for me, Dave. Bit of a snoozer, man. This is tough.
That's been the thing with me largely the whole time. It's like I respect the talent, I see the talent. Like you said, good performer.
Yeah.
But the problem for me is just the songs aren't there.
No.
Like, I Can't Breathe winning the award on the sentiment, obviously, but like no one really likes that song. Most people don't even know anything about the song because it's not something you're gonna run back. And even taking away a message song like that aside, like what's the essential Her song? Does anybody know? Like, I don't know. Like when I think of her contemporaries, obviously, female-led R&B is huge right now, and there's just people with way more personality in their songs, like LMI, Georgia Smith,
Yeah.
who we recently discussed, uh, Deanna Taylor, heck, even
That-
Summer Walker, who I'm not the biggest fan of, but I feel like they're kind of comparable in terms of what they sound like to me. But the
yeah.
way her has talked about it, it's like she's on this plane by herself. But I just don't think it's actually coming through in the records.
Yeah. So when I think of her, the song I think of is the track she did with Daniel Caesar from her debut, or
That's right.
her debut mixtape, Best Part. That has 700 million streams on Spotify. By far her most popular song.
Yeah. So
After
that's
that,
clearly the essential song then.
yeah. After that, there's no track that tops even 175,000 streams. So for someone that's been anointed, I like you're pointing out, the numbers aren't really there to back it up. And I think it's because as I was listening through this, it's all this like soft R&B mixed with a little bit of rock here and there, throw in a little
Mm,
guitar solo. But we know she has the potential to write a song like Eve's Tumor Kerosene. Like she has the
mm,
chops to write a guitar lick like that, to just like set your eardrums on fire, and she just kind of seems to fall like really want to go for this like soft R&B music that she obviously loves because it's all we've heard. And I just want to see her like tap into that performer that she is on stage live, because I think there's just so much more here and we get very little of that on Back of My
mm,
Mind. Kind of jumping into it, I think for me, I enjoyed probably the beginning the most. I thought Trauma with Corday was probably a standout for me. Um, let's see. I thought Cheat Code was okay.
mhm,
Um, Process stood out because of the way that she was using the most basic lyrics to rhyme with process. He's fucking up the progress.
mm.
Not worried about the process. I was like, okay. But probably the song I liked the most was Hold On, because at the end she's really tapping into what I'm talking about that I want to see from her, which is, she's shredding a little bit more. She's leaning into her guitar chops. It made my ears perk up in the second half of the album when I was falling asleep. So that one stood out. And then, of course, Slide with YG. I mean, that's the song that's gotten a lot of radio play off this. And she did a remix. Yeah, who was on that? A Boogie, I think, or something like that.
Pop
But
Smoke, A
yeah,
Boogie, and Chris Brown.
other than that, man, I found this to be a big snooze.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think you named most of the good ones. I mean, get another Bryson Tiller feature on here. I don't think it's quite as effective as her first one. Could have been. I like seeing Corday feature, of course, but actually, I'm more impressed to see a Young Blue feature on Paradise. Seeing him pop up on a major label album after Yours Mine Still got the big bump with the Drake remix, so that's nice and all. But yeah, I mean, second track features Ty Dolla Sign, another person who just does what her does on a different level. And yet, is Ty Dolla Sign playing a lot of guitar? No, but he's just making stickier songs.
Yeah, for
Is
sure.
what it is.
Man, I'm sure this is not going to be her best work. And we'll be talking about her obviously a lot. She's going to be
Talking
around,
about her.
ah, but yeah, this is easy listening. Honestly, like it was good to listen to this while I
Yeah, it's
worked
not
because I
offensive. It just
yeah,
doesn't stand out as much as you'd want.
and I really just hope now that she's been anointed by the Grammys, this isn't the direction she goes in, which is safe. Like she's really got to push it for me to feel like she jumps into that
Right.
stratosphere. But she doesn't care about my opinion, I'm sure. So
No. But actually, I think that's why we're both more critical, is because you see the talent, you see the
right.
ability, and you just want to see it manifested at a higher level. So
Mhm.
it's a tough love because we expect more.
Yes. Don't set the bar so high if you I don't know. I don't remember that.
Yeah.
But
Just don't
spe-
don't do that if you can't do it.
yeah. But speaking of setting the bar high, Tyler the Creator, an artist that we talked about in length in our podcast last week. Check that out. Nowstalgia on Twitter. Tweets out everything. Go follow us there. YouTube.
YouTube.com/nostalgiapod. Tyler the Creator albums ranked. All six to this point, according to Tyler. Bastard is his first album and not a mixtape. Yes,
Hey.
Wikipedia, they would disagree.
Um, well, it's funny because when we're talking about an artist that we like expected to be something, we talked about it with Tyler last week. when we first heard him, it was very exciting because it was that horror rap, something different.
Yeah.
But we never
Shock
expected,
value. Fucking with
yeah,
you.
exactly, and we never expected him to grow into the artist he is now, which is boundary pushing.
Yep.
I think boundary pushing lyrically and lyrical content as well. There's just a lot, and but we both kind of said, what do we expect from "Call Me If You Get Lost," which we didn't know the title of at the time. We said we expect it to be good, probably not as good as Igor, which was both our number ones. Maybe close to Flower Boy. Man, this might have passed Flower Boy for me because this album fucking rocks. Like, holy
Dude,
shit,
he did it again, dude. He did it again. I can't
it's so
believe it.
good.
I can't believe it. Like he's taking jump after jump after jump. It's amazing. And in this case, with Call Me If You Get Lost, he brings it all the way back around and drops some fucking rap shit. It's awesome. And it's a Gangsta Grills mixtape. You got DJ drama all over this thing. It's fucking awesome. I
Yeah,
can't
man.
believe it, dude. I was listening to this in some rush hour traffic in the car, listening in the car like Tyler likes to do, a man loving of the automobile. Many car references once again on this album. And from the jump, this shit fucking goes and it just hooks you in. I was again not knowing what to expect. Like, yeah, we heard Lumberjack, but still I didn't really know what to expect, especially coming off Igor, right? But this is a much more in line with some of those loose songs we had gotten of late, like Potato Salad, for example. It's in best interest, stuff like that. I was so surprised.
Mm.
And the feature list, right? Like it's again Gangster Girls mixtape. Tyler the Creator having NBA YoungBoy and 42 Doug on his album. What? But it's fucking good. Oh
Yeah,
my
man.
god, I love it, dude.
It on first listen, I was like, wow, this album flows together really well. Something that we've heard since Flower Boy. He really has been sequencing and mixing everything together. But I was really just impressed with how chopped together this was and how much he worked in sounds that reminded me of uh, Action Bronson type albums, right?
Oh
Like
yeah,
there was just like a moment where I was like, this sounds like something actually I'd hear in an Action Bronson album. The next moment, it goes into something like Lumberjack, which is just fucking bass and hard, and then it just switches up in the middle, and it's so like he's working in samples, he's working in these just like moments, and then you go into an 8-minute rap song where he's fucking rapping for 8 minutes, which we haven't heard him rap long form like that since what 2015. I don't even know. Like it's
yeah,
been a while.
yeah.
So it's
Around then,
like
yeah.
it feels a bit like he's now meshing every aspect of his creativity together. And I saw someone say like I think it was actually on the Ringer music show, their first reaction to it. They said, I
Yeah,
didn't expect Tyler the Creator to kind of morph into the modern Kanye. And I feel like that's kind of an apt
it's right.
comparison because he really is starting to blend and push boundaries that like you just don't expect or even think of, and then we're gonna start seeing other rappers doing this. It's fucking crazy.
Yeah, and the Kanye comparison makes so much sense actually because it's back around of Tyler as the curator, as the producer, but also as like the MC. Kanye
Yes.
very famous for bringing other people into his orbit and having them not steal his songs, but fit in with what he's doing on the album. And again, to pull that off with more nascent young men like NBA YoungBoy and 42 Doug, I think says a lot to that kind of ability. And again, especially coming off of something like Igor and even Flower Boy, where it's like hip hop was part of the equation, but not all of it. Igor, a lot of pop on that, right?
Hmm.
But to bring this back around, and like you said, like he's really rapping on this. There's a lot of like really memorable stuff that comes up, like on Massa, where he just kind of off the cuff tells everyone for the first time that his mom was in a
Yeah.
shelter at the time of Yonkers coming out 10 years ago. I was really struck by Manifesto, which is awesome, of course, for the Damo Genesis feature, Odd
Hmm.
Future Brothers that they are. But hearing Tyler reckon as what is he, 30 now, 31, whatever, like hearing him now reckon with his past and his past
Yeah.
controversy in terms of people protesting him at his shows because of things he said, the being really out of pocket online about Selena Gomez and how he told her in person how he'd like sorry about all of that.
Mhm.
Just really impressive stuff. And I think also not something I expected was when he started talking about the pressure put on him as a public facing black man to speak out about societal issues.
Mhm.
And he kind of, I think, honestly discusses his thoughts about how he kind of goes both ways with it, right? I'll go to the protest, I'll donate some money, then I'll cop a Rolls Royce or whatever he says. Like it's only how Tyler could say it, but it felt really honest.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think there's a lot of memorable lines, and the songs that you're kind of mentioning are these like, pretty much there's two long tracks on this, right? There's two tracks that add up to a total of 18 minutes on here, and then after that, these are short, quick songs where he's
Hmm.
just kind of bringing it, and then he's getting out quick. There's like a quick transition at the end, and he's on to the next song, which I thought worked really well. Because not only did I think it really made those two songs like the centerpiece of the album in a sense, and I thought "Sweet," I thought "You Want to Dance" worked for me the first time listening back through. It might not be a song I always go to, although I do really love when it switches up to "I Thought You Want to Dance," and it's kind of like dance holly in a sense, the way that
Hmm.
he blends that in. Um, but I thought Wilshire really stood
Hmm.
out because not only is it this 8-minute rap epic from Tyler, but in the first half, he's talking about this relationship with this girl that he was dating his friend, and he's so infatuated with this girl, so in love with her that he's willing to risk this friendship, willing to lose this friend over it. And the second half, he's questioning himself. He's overly analytical and critical of himself, and to like see him kind of show these two sides, and I feel like he really mixes that in throughout the album. You hear him talking about, oh, it's my first time leaving LA. I'm on a private jet. I'm doing, and then it just like cuts off to the song, and the song starts. Or
Hmm.
he has these other moments where he's like being very boastful about something about himself, and then it just like cuts to something else. And I feel like that Wilshire really encapsulates what he's trying to do in this album is kind of like show these multitudes how he's this person who's affected by fame, but also still this person who's figuring things out underneath. It's
Right.
really cool.
And also with a song like Wilshire, whatever it is, make no mistake about it. Tyler the Creator is a top tier rapper, and just because he wasn't making all that much rap the past few years, didn't change that fact.
Right.
You know, when the rap rush Mount Rushmore stuff was trending a few weeks back, Drake, Kendrick, Cole, and who, Nicki, Thug, who is it, Future. Tyler's name should have come up more.
Yeah.
Dropping every other year since 2009 with this much variety and growth. Who's done that? You know. Uh,
Man, it's amazing. For him to become this artist is just awesome. None of us deserve the person or the artist he's become, but
yeah,
I'll take it.
yeah.
Um, you mentioned a lot of the tracks you liked, but what are your favorite ones from this album?
Favorite song, so I appreciate a lot like the real rap and stuff, but I wouldn't say Wilshire is my favorite song just 'cause I'm not gonna listen to that all that much anymore. Lemonhead really stands out with Doug because man, that beat flip when Doug
Yeah.
comes in and he's all distorted just fucking rules. But I also really love the beginning when like I was so surprised by what the album was with Sir Baudelaire, which is like this alter ego persona Tyler's playing on with this album, and Corso as well. Yeah,
Mhm.
those songs just go hard, man. I love
Yeah.
hearing drama on it. Later on, Hot Wind Blows in the beginning. Drama is like, we just touched down in Geneva. Yeah,
Yep.
that's in Switzerland. So fucking funny, you know? Oh man. Uh
Yeah, man.
yeah, so I would say Lemonhead's my favorite song. I like Corso a lot. But there's a lot of stuff here. And Manifesto, really impressive. And you mentioned Juggernaut, which you got Pharrell Williams rapping like it's moved that dope. Another thing doesn't happen all that often.
Yep. I have to say, Juggernaut probably one of my least favorite albums on
Yeah, I
here,
didn't love
but
Uzi too much on, unfortunately.
yeah, but hearing Pharrell was like I was my ears perked up. Um, so it's funny because I think the songs that I dug more were some of the more groovy ones. So like "What's Your Name," which I shouted at the
Mhm.
beginning, but that and Corso, I believe it was, really felt like something you might hear on Action Bronson, but like with like a much better twist and like much more interestingly produced somehow. But my favorite song is probably Rise. I thought that chorus just so catchy, and it just is a really fun song. I can see myself using that in a lot of Instagram stories in the near future. So if you want to follow me on Instagram, you can enjoy that. But
Do that.
also just shout out Mama Talk. I just thought that was like a really funny thing to interject, and to have his mom, who we just talked about a few songs earlier about where she was at, where she is now. He has mentioned before that he I forgot which song it was, but he talked about wanting his mom to be there when he wins a Grammy in one of his
Mhm.
earlier albums. She was there when he won a Grammy, and now she's on his record, telling a story about beating up kids that picked on Tyler, or moms that of kids that picked on Tyler. So pretty funny stuff. Um, Anything else on this, man? Where does this fit in your rankings now? Uh,
I mean, at minimum, it's top three.
yeah, it's definitely top three.
Early to say for sure, but it's at least top three, which is no easy feat. And like we said when we did our album rankings, which check those out, it if Tyler had not made something that was top three, it would have not only been okay, but it would have been understandable because of the rapid pace of his releases, but also he keeps taking a step. And if he hadn't done that, it would have been okay too. But he did. It's really impressive.
Yeah, it's definitely top three for me. Probably number two right now, but have to go back and give Flower Boy another shot because might just be recency bias. But either way, check out Call Me If You're Lost, but if you get lost. But Dave, I wanted to circle back because I was so excited to talk about Tyler. I skipped over probably the most popular artist we're talking about today,
Definitely.
Doja Cat. Um, what's her Spotify rank? Do you know?
10,
Oh,
50, almost 55 million monthly listeners. Meteoric rise since we talked about her second album, Hot Pink, towards the end of 2019. It was clear Dojo was becoming a force in both hip hop and pop, but I certainly didn't see her becoming a plus lister. But she undoubtedly is one now.
absolutely. And you know, I, when I think of Doja Cat, I think I just think of TikTok, man. Like I feel like ever since I started getting on TikTok, I've just heard Doja Cat every third video that I swipe through.
Yeah, streets in particular really.
Yep.
That's where I've realized Dojo was like really becoming big. Because Say So, which was the biggest hit off Hot Pink, that didn't get to number one until the Nicki remix comes out to push it over. But then I saw how Long the Tail Streets had, which was really just an album cut.
Mhm.
And like you see that how popular that song was on TikTok. And it's like, I don't know, Doja Cat just like made an impression and become a full fledged real artist after having some meme inducing beginnings with a song like Moo, right? Like just to get to this point is really funny. But yeah, you're right. Like she is one of the artists of TikTok without question. She has so many major TikTok hits.
Yeah, and you know, listening through Planet her third album, I feel like that there's some moments on here that I'm like, wow, these songs are really good. Totally get it. Like I think it really starts off hot. I thought Woman and Naked, totally catchy, caught my ear. I was with those. But then there's some other moments that I just didn't find as interesting, especially some big moments I expected to be more taken by. Something like I Don't Do Drugs with Ariana felt totally flat for me. Her,
Wow.
You Right with The Weekend, I wasn't as caught by. But there is just something about I think her delivery and just her persona as an artist that comes through where it's just like she just sounds very cool and like she's not trying too hard, but it really works. And like it just is catchy, and I feel like even the songs I didn't like, I get why they stick for people. But it sounds like you liked the Ari song.
Yeah, so I'm with you on you, right? The Weekend song. The Weekend just didn't make as big enough impression for me. I was a little surprised by that. But I really liked I Don't Do Drugs with Ari. Reminded me a lot of Met Him Last Night, Ari's feature on the Demi Lovato album earlier this year.
Hmm.
I just felt like a really good pairing. Doja in general really plays well with others, both as a guest and on her own songs. But I love the harmony they have there. I love Doja's performance on it. I thought Ari sounded really good. And I think honestly that's just another example. I think Ariana has like this a lot of untapped potential just as doing these like banger features because like she's doing a lot on these, right? Like she's harmonizing on the hook. She's also doing her own verse, and then you have Doja doing what Doja does a lot, which is both make real pop and real hip hop at the same time. So yeah, I like that song a lot, but it already definitely doesn't steal it from Doja. This is an album that I was impressed with how kind of seamless it sounds, and
Yeah,
remains to be seen if there's like as many quote hits on this the way there were big like real hits on Hot Pink, but it's definitely a step up in terms of like album construction sense because she just sounds like super, comfortable on this, right? Like it is this, and I think that's just because Doja has so much baked in versatility as a performer at this point that
yeah,
she can really just bounce around on these songs and do something that's like really, really, really just hip hop, like get into it, yeah, which has like that really awesome like call and response kind of section, and then she can make like these much more silkier pop songs, and she does both really well.
yeah. She does, and you know, I would never have thought about her in this way, but just to, someone like Cardi, Meg, Nicki. I mean, her rapping ability is right up there. I feel like with them, maybe not. They might be like tier A, and she's like upper tier B, but
Yeah, I know
she
that
really
sounds
can
great.
spit a good verse. Like something like "Get Into It." Yeah, I really thought he flowed really well in that. I was really impressed with that. I thought that was a really good song. And I think for me, just in kind of thinking about the most in the album that worked, I really like it when I think vibe more with the Doja Cat songs that are more upbeat. I think that's why I really liked Woman and Naked, something that's a little
Mhm.
bit more poppy. I Don't Do Drugs is a little bit more toned back. It almost feels like something from Ari's recent
Yeah,
album in a sense, which is kind
definitely.
of funny. But yeah, I really like Kiss Me More with SZA. That's another song that's
Of
going around
course.
TikTok right now, and
Yep, big hit.
just sticky. So I agree. I think there's a lot to like here. I'm impressed with the artist she's become because if you had asked me probably 2 years ago, I would have been like, yeah, she's a TikTok artist. Like, she's a
Right.
little bit above that because we talked about Hot Pink, and I
Yeah.
think we both thought there was more there, but yeah, I wasn't really totally taken by her. But this changed my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, "Kiss Me More" as the lead single off this album impressed me a lot because that's another example of Doja doing both things at once. It's like a completely a pop song, but she also has like a really awesome rap breakdown in it too.
Hmm.
And I actually think SZA is almost a little redundant on that song because
Yeah,
Doja's doing so much already. Like by the time SZA comes in, it's like almost besides the point. But and also like this album coming out when it did, her third album, it's been a little over a year since Hot Pink, but Doja has been so omnipresent this whole time. I was not expecting her to release a bunch of brand new stuff quite this soon because she had really just been coasting off Hot
yeah,
Pink for a year plus. But then again, I guess that's being smart because now she's gonna stick around for another year with all the
yep,
stuff on this. So yeah, it's cool to see the level up for sure, and it's also, I guess, funny, sad, whatever, interesting to see how any controversy, any misquote, any uh, goof she does, has said in the past, currently, just bounces off her.
mhm,
She's so popular, so successful.
yeah. And that's just to mention, she does have 3 songs produced by Dr. Luke on this
Yeah,
album,
say
which
so
is
as well.
um, yeah. So it's she doesn't shy away from the controversy. I will say I don't think the Dr. Luke songs are any of the more memorable
No,
ones. Which
he's still
actually
using
one
the
of them
fake
is
name for that, right? He was doing that in Hot Pink.
at least on Wikipedia he's listed as Dr. Luke.
Oh wow,
So
okay, yeah, he was using like a pseudonym on Hot Pink. I guess at this point, it's like he doesn't give a fuck. Neither does she, clearly, and
yeah,
also people eat it up. So
hmm people are talking.
it is what it
Um,
is.
but yeah, I mean Doja Cat, a force to be reckoned with, and we'll be putting a song from each of these albums onto our Spotify Nostalgia Best of 2021 playlist. So check that out. It's in the show notes. But let's move on to TV. And we'll talk about all artists that we talked about today. We're talking about Lupin, man. And part two finally came out. We really enjoyed this French television series that was on Netflix, starring Omar Sy. And I think what we liked about the first five episodes was, the episodes felt kind of bottle episode-ish in a way. Like there was always like a scheme going on,
Mm.
a task with like an overarching, you know, Lupin or what's his name, Diop versus
San Diop.
yeah versus
Yes. Big
the
fan of
bigger
Arsène
staff.
Lupin. Yes.
And it just felt like this part two didn't have the same je ne sais quoi. I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but it
Yeah.
just didn't catch me the same. Something felt a little bit not as exciting. How did you feel about it?
I completely agree. And it's kind of interesting to think about how unusual Lupin Part 1 and 2 are. Because Part 1 comes out in early January, unexpected. Nothing really else to watch at the time apart from like Bridgerton, and it's a surprise hit. And it's the most successful French show on Netflix by leaps and bounds.
Mhm.
And Part 2 comes out 6 months later, it had already been filmed at the time Part 1 released, and yet Part 2 really is just Part 1, Part 2. It's like we just paused where Part 1 stops and we picked it right back up. It's like we divided a season. This is not really a season 2, it's the second half of the first season still.
Right.
And by splitting it like this, I mean, when I first started watching again, I was like trying to remember the narrative,
Yeah.
because the show really started focusing on plot. And I actually think that was a negative because part two really just is obsessed with plot, plot, plot in terms of Assan's trying to thwart and then, take down Pellegrini, the central villain. And it kind of gets away from the best parts of Lupin Part 1, which is those first few episodes where it feels like smaller stakes, but it's really just more grounded in Omar Sy's performance as Hassan in terms of his charm, the gentleman thief, the Lupin
Mhm.
character. Like
Right.
it's the heists, the trickery of it all. And then in part two, like towards the end, him and his boy have like a magic smartphone app that unlocks doors. Like it just felt like we kind of lost it, lost what the best parts of the show were.
Yeah.
Thankfully, Omar Sy's such a charismatic performer. He has a great presence whenever he's around, which is almost every scene. That it's still like fun, but I was let down by how like obsessed with the convoluted plot it became. The flashbacks we get in part two, completely inconsequential, and
Mhm.
they're just kind of like almost a lazy way to convey future twists.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think you summed it up well because I found myself just kind of wanting him to have one of those moments where he, I don't know, was in some random place on the television show dressed up as an old man and like, why is he doing this? Or you do get a few of those moments, right? Like, in one of the episodes, he's dressed as like a cook, at one point, and he
Mhm.
uses that as a way to get into. I forgot what it was. I think it was the what's the opera thing? Because the opera thing or the concert thing, he dressed up as that like security person, and then he runs
Mhm.
away. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think I cared way more about the Lupin stuff and like the mystery, the like sleight of hand, and a lot less about the Asan, the op stuff. And when it's all about Asan and not as much about Lupin anymore, even though people could say they're one and the same, I just didn't find it as interesting. I also was just curious about his apartment. Like, he had this like back room with all these costumes and
It's
stuff.
huge.
Like, yeah, how does he afford that? Like, what is it? Didn't he just like get out of prison? Like, uh,
Yeah, I was like, you must have, and then then you get, I think, like cool like set moments where he has like a safe house set up in a storage
mhm,
locker. That's a cool idea. That also happens to be over a catacombs entrance, right? I like both parts for the how they play with Paris, where you're largely in Paris the whole time, and in part two, you get a lot of memorable stuff once again. We're in the Musée d'Orsay a little bit, where you see the sign constantly, the
Mhm.
catacombs, of course, the Arc. He drives the Vespa around the Arc de Triomphe, like we're it's some Paris shit, and that's always fun. But yeah, it definitely left me wanting, and, like, now thinking about it, like, when it comes to, like, making my, like, list, like, for the end of year, like, Lupin Part 1 is definitely one of my favorite shows of the year,
Yeah.
but do I have to consider both of them as one piece? Because if so, it's getting a severe downgrade 'cause it's just not as strong.
Yeah, no, I agree. Man, that'll be a question we'll have to answer similar to uh, the movie versus
Right.
TV debate last year. So
Oh god,
I
yeah.
don't know.
Small axe.
Yeah, I don't know. Definitely a disappointment, but I do think the first episode back, that like chase episode, was pretty fun. Although
Mhm.
I don't really know if I understand all the mechanics of that. The house was a little confusing at the end for me, like who was in what place, how they get to the
Yeah.
car and stuff. But yeah, I don't know, man. Disappointing, but I think Lupin Part One, like you said, something to treasure from this year. Nice surprise. So,
Right. So we know part
thoughts?
three's on the way. I just hope what's his leave Pellegrini?
Yeah,
Which is something new. Even if it's like a more, big narrative again with like a central villain or something, just do something a little different. And man, I mean, honestly, like the show probably peaks in the very beginning when he steals the necklace
yeah.
in the
That episode's
Louvre,
so
right?
good.
Like that was amazing. That like
Yeah.
completely hooks you in. And if we could find a way to get back to that DNA, uh, I think he'd win everyone back really fast.
Yeah, this doesn't feel like a show that needs that overarching villain though. It feels like
No,
it could just do 5 episodes, different stories, and like
right. And you
let
have this
story
central
unfold.
performance that's so magnetic. You have an
Yep.
amazing setting, and the whole like Lupin exists in the world of the show thing. You have so much going for it already. Yeah, I don't think you need to worry about like heavy plot. No
No,
question.
for sure. Um, Dave, why don't we shift gears quickly? Get it? Shift gears. The Fast Nine. Strap
Wow.
yourself in. We're going to the moon with Jeff Bezos. $26 million just to sit next to him. I think it was something like that, right? For like 11 minutes,
It's
whatever that was.
it's about right. Yeah.
But yeah, Fast Nine, man. Tell me about it.
Fast 9, the 10th movie in the Fast and Furious franchise. Crazy though we've gotten to this point, but here we are. And this is a movie that's been out overseas, namely in Asia, for over a month, about 6 weeks at this point, doing very well. And we just released in the US and the UK this past weekend, setting new US box office records along the way, 70 million, which actually outgrossed Hobbs and Shaw's opening weekend, notably that was not during any semblance of COVID. So a strong start at the box office for F9 and makes Universal look smart from immediately delaying the film a year, basically as soon as COVID began. And I think for me, I'm a fan of the Fast and Furious franchise. I feel like most people that go to these movies at this point is a fan of them or doesn't care about like they're just kind of like a casual fan of movies. It's like, oh, I'll go see Fast Nine. I haven't seen like six of the other ones, but I'll see this anyway because it's a big budget blockbuster and I like the big screen. Like
Yeah.
I don't think anyone goes into these movies with like grand like critical expectations. But it's actually really funny to look back on how the Fast and Furious franchise has evolved over 10 movies and also how like four quadrants it is. Has a very diverse fan base just like it has a very
Mhm.
diverse cast. And now getting Fast 9, uh I think just bluntly it's not as strong as like the recent run of Level Up that Fast did when we got Fast 5, 6 and Furious 7. We're not at that point anymore, and I think we have to accept that we're not at that point anymore. Probably a big part of that is just that Paul Walker is no longer with us. We don't have Brian anymore, so the movies just are kind of lacking a certain piece. But this is still over the top crazy shit. that you expect from recent Fast movies. So if that's what you like, this really delivers on that. But there is a lot of brainless shit, uh, and it's not as good as 5, 6, or 7. So uh, it's actually spurred a lot of interesting conversation, I think, in terms of people thinking there's a two-part finale that they're gonna, I believe, start shooting in about a year, next January. So Fast 10 and 11, or 10 part 1 and 2. Uh,
The end.
yeah, they're ending the main Fast and Furious story anyway, and it's been a lot of interesting conversations. Will Fast downshift and bring it all
Ah,
back around? Will we actually get around to the racing and stuff in smaller scale? Because at the end of the day, this is not a franchise about street racing. It's also not a franchise about the crazy action. Even though we've had a lot of, it's been all action for the past 10 years. It's a soap. It's about
yeah.
family, like the cliche. It's about the characters, and I think it would be really effective to all the hardcore fans if they actually switch it up and slow it down at the very end. We'll see. But yeah, this is it's a lot like the Fate of Furious, the last main entry, where it's kind of brainless, but you're kind of there for the character moments at the end of the day, and you hope the big set pieces hit. And I don't think like the set pieces in this are as good as some of the other ones of late, but there's some cool stuff with magnets. I like that, like magnets pulling fucking up cars and stuff, I don't
Magnets.
know.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean,
shout out Jesse. What's his last name in Breaking Bad? I don't even remember. Jesse
Pinkman. Yeah,
Pinkman. Yeah, I was
science
gonna say
bitch.
Jesse Plemons, and I was like, that's the wrong one. Uh, yeah, so they actually do go to space in this one, right?
Yeah, Roman and Tej, Ludacris and Tyrese, they do go to space with the help of the Tokyo Drift crew, who make a complete return. Lucas Black, Bow Wow,
Wow.
and the other guy, I forget his name. Yeah, so that was a cool moment, unexpected. Yeah, and they go
Yeah.
to space, and I actually like that. That's a funny thing too. That's been like a joke, a cliche about Fast. You keep making it bigger and bigger. The only thing you have left to do is go to space.
All right.
It doesn't completely land. It's not as cool as you'd think.
Hmm.
So that's a little disappointing to me. Which is why, like again, like at this point, we don't have to get any bigger. I actually think there's a lot more to gain if we get smaller one more time at the end. But yeah, they do go to space. They actually did it. Like unironically, they did it.
It's funny though because as you're talking about it, what is it going to kind of revert back for these final two movies? Something a little smaller. I think one of the things that I believe from the podcasts I've listened to about this seems like Fast Five is like when things start like upping the ante every time and really move away from the racing more to like them just kind of doing these superhero s things. And really, at this point, it is like a soapy superhero movie.
Hmm.
People die and come back. These guys are like ramming cars into each other, jumping cars into the air,
The
defying
cars never
gravity.
break.
Yes, it's amazing. But I feel like they need to come back down to earth. But for real, like they can't keep going bigger because there's literally nothing more that they really can do, and still really call it the Fast franchise. But I was kind of wondering, like, what even are the essentials of the Fast franchise at this point? Obviously, like family. You have what Vin Diesel needs to be there, and then after that, it feels like you can just kind of like fit things in, and like they have such a big cast at this point. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it feels like Dom and Letty, Vin Diesel and Michelle Rodriguez, they're probably the two central components. But like you said, the cast has ballooned, and I actually kind of buried the lead here. The cast got even bigger again because they brought Han back to life.
Yeah,
And God, I really wish it was a surprise. They spoiled it in the trailer.
yeah.
And then we also, due to COVID, we're sitting with that for a year plus.
Mhm.
So
How did they bring
that
him back? What did they say?
and that's the thing. They kind of yada yada it. They Kurt Russell faked his death. He's back, but like Sung Kang as Han is a great presence, and I'm really excited to see more of him in 10 and 11.
Yeah.
But yeah, they kind of yada yada it, and I wish it was hidden. But on the other hand, Jordana Brewster gets more action than she's had in the past. Um, and speaking to something you mentioned before about how they're like basically superheroes at this point, there's actually a kind of rotating or a revolving meta bit by Roman, where he's basically saying like, "Yo, we're like invincible. Look at me, not a scratch on me. They had all these guys shoot at me. no bullet holes. Like it's actually hilarious. And like in general, Roman's a really funny character. But yeah, I mean, obviously, you have to know what your expectations are for the franchise when you watch these movies. Um, and I think the weakest thing for me with this is there's a lot of flashbacks to Dom and his now revealed estranged brother, played by John Cena. There's a lot of flashbacks to their past, and like I said, it's really soapy. Like we got a lot of Dom family past stuff in this, and some of it works, some of it doesn't. I think probably the biggest sin with F9 is that the set pieces just don't quite reach the heights of some of the really famous ones. Like Furious 7, they jumped a car through a skyscraper, which was in the trailer. And
Mhm.
then when you watch the movie, you realize then they drove through us into a second skyscraper, and it was fucking amazing. Like Fast Five, of course, the bank vault thing when it's being towed by the truck. Like there's some really famous stuff.
Yeah.
This, like, I guess the best set piece is, apart from the generic man stuff, is like the best set piece was when Dom like hooks his car to a rope bridge, and, like slingshots him and Letty. But that was also in the trailer.
Yeah, I was gonna say I saw that. So
Right.
it's interesting, and as we're thinking about superheroes, and obviously we're always thinking about superheroes in terms of Marvel, DC. eh, Could you see them with taking this huge cast after they finish these next two movies, almost being like, all right, Dom and Letty gets their own spin-off, and then we're gonna have these two kind of do their own
Mm,
thing, and they're all gonna have their kind of different movies, and they might come back together in like
mm.
I don't know another 10 years, something like that.
Right. Well, obviously, we already started that in a certain sense with Hobbs and Shaw
Yeah.
spinoff, and there's a lot of rumblings about a female-led spinoff to
Huh.
come. And you think about it, I love the idea because the female cast in Fast is fucking stacked. Obviously,
Yeah.
Michelle Rodriguez and Jordana Brewster will be there a lot as like central characters. You also have Helen Mirren and Charlize Theron
Yep.
and Vanessa Kirby from Hobbs and Shaw and Natalia Emmanuel, of course, Ramsey, um, from Game of Thrones. And then you could try and bring someone back like Eva Mendes. Like there's a lot of potential, I think, with the female led cast. So that would be cool. Yeah. Oh yeah. So another thing too, this is called
Fast Nine
F9
universe.
colon the Fast Saga. They started calling it the Fast Saga. They are not letting this shit die, even if they end their main films. That is abundantly obvious. And for Universal. And you know what? I don't mind because think about it. Fast and Furious is the only like completely original franchise there is right now. You know, this shit came into being at the turn of the millennium and is still going as a top tier franchise. Everything else has a lot more history as IP, right? So
Mhm.
I say keep it going. Do what you gotta do. Make that money.
Yeah, just a quick question. Behind you, I see Charlize Theron. Is this from the F9? This poster?
Yes, yeah, she has a new haircut in F9. F8, notably, she had dreads, and this time she has a very strange bowl cut. And
I
she's not in the
really,
movie a lot. It's kind of she was probably on set for 2 days, and nice callback, I guess, because she's like trapped in like a box at one point. It's like a glass box, very reminiscent of when Magneto is in the glass prison in X Men too.
I just
Yeah,
appreciate Charlize taking the challenge to find the worst haircut possible and see if she's still the most attractive woman in the
done
world.
it
And she
twice,
definitely
and yeah,
is.
still works.
Anyways, why don't we wrap up today's episode talking about Pixar's newest movie, Luca? Taking place um, in Italy, notably. The
Not
Italian city of
Slovenia, starring Luka Doncic. Not that Luka.
Porto Rosso. Luka Doncic for going to be a Boston Celtic in the future after he
Oh
leaves the
no.
Mavs. Yes, Jalen Brown and all the picks. Just do it. But anyways, yeah. So Luca is. I was watching this movie and I went in with the expectations that Pixar going global. Already had Coco,
Right.
but continuing its venture around the world, pulling different cultures. I expected this to be maybe in that Coco territory. It's basically Little Mermaid, uh, in Pixar's version, kind
Mhm.
of.
Literally a fish out of water.
Yeah. Um, and this ended up feeling very much like B-list Pixar to me, even though I think it's like obviously the animation is great. I think some of the voice performances, Jack Dylan Grazer, who we just talked about,
Yeah,
Jacob Tremblay, who we haven't talked about in a while, but shout
mhm,
out Room,
yeah.
good,
He's
good.
getting older. He's which is nice. He's grown up.
Yeah. So I think there's some good parts of it, but overall, I just felt like this was a bit disappointing because I think I went in with really high expectations. How
Hmm.
did you feel about Luca?
Yeah, so I like it and I actually quite appreciate it because of how different it is from some of the other stuff we've got for Pixar recently. Once again, it's an original, brand new Pixar iteration, which is nice to see. We've had that a lot recently. Coco, Onward, Soul, and before that, there'd been some concern showing about Pixar becoming a bit of a sequel factory. Credibles 2, Finding Dory, Toy Story
Hmm.
4. And we always expect Pixar for great original stories and just kind of being one of the few places that we know can continue to give us original stories convincingly because they're part of the Disney machine and these movies will be successful regardless of if they're IP or not. And just to get another original one again, I appreciate. But I think you're right. This is a lot like Onward. This
Yeah.
is, it's just solid. There are some very familiar Pixar storytelling beats regarding the coming of age of our lead protagonist. But I also appreciated how more straightforward it was for a kid's film. We
Hmm.
love Soul. Soul is existential as fuck.
Yeah.
Luca is not. Luca is just a coming of age story about some kids.
Yeah.
And that's cool too.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think this is this is kind of the way Pixar seems to be going right now, right? Where it's like they do one movie a year that's straightforward, kids can definitely mesh with and made for them more, and then they do one that's a little bit more heady, makes you think a little bit more. And this year, what's the one they have coming out? Man, in Colombia, it's set. Lin Manuel Miranda's doing the music for it. I can't remember exactly now. I'm gonna
So
look it up.
are you thinking of Encanto?
Yes.
So I actually thought that was Pixar too. That's actually just Disney animation. So they
Oh.
don't have another one coming out this year. The next Pixar movie is Turning Red in March 2022, and then the Buzz Lightyear prequel Lightyear in June 2022.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah,
Well, I had that wrong, folks, but
yeah. So did I in my head.
yeah, but um, I didn't mind this so much because I just like you, I agree that this really works just as a very straightforward movie. I think it's beautiful, and seeing like the Italian coast animated like this is just like
Mm.
amazing. I really liked like working in biking and things like that from culture. And I gotta say, like there are some really funny bits to this. I really liked when Maya Rudolph playing the mom goes looking for Luca
Oh yeah.
and it's just beating all the kids up playing soccer. I thought that was great.
One
A
cup for
couple of
kid. Okay, yeah, we got that.
yeah. And I gotta say, this might be like the best kid villain I can remember in these Pixar movies because I hated that kid, man. I
Yeah, he
hated him.
sucked.
The worst.
Yeah, I agree. It's a clear reproduction of the Cinque Terre in Italy. The Italian Riviera looks gorgeous, looks just like Vernazza in particular, and that's really cool. Um, like you said, Coco, clearly Mexico.
Mhm.
I believe Turning Red has an Asian influence, if I remember right. I'm not sure, uh, but that's cool to see again. Pixar getting more diverse in their storytelling. Of course, Soul featuring their first
Yep.
lead black character. You know, given Pixar's behind the scenes history with John Lasseter and just being a boys' club in general, it's nice to see Pixar under Pete Docter having a I think wider view of how they operate, but also the storytelling they're doing. And I think in this one, my favorite thing was the bit about like, the Vespa, the desire to have a scooter. Actually, it gave me FOMO because I almost rented a scooter once in Europe and I didn't do it. And then when I was watching this movie, I was like, ah, fuck, I should have rented the scooter when I was there. Damn.
Dave, I mean, what was the reason not to?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I was confident in my abilities to drive it, I guess. So, yeah, I don't know. I just didn't do it. Should have done it.
Hmm.
That would been fun.
Next time, Dave, you and
The
you can find a
Vespa.
friend and you can be like Aziz and his friend.
Yeah,
But you
master
know,
done.
um, yeah, I think one of the other parts of this movie that I just really liked was it felt like they really like drove home certain aspects that in other movies didn't work as well for me. Like I really thought the I guess like the comedy around the like hiding of things in this really worked. Like when they were training for the bike thing and they would like fall in the water and having to like hide that and how they would like work
Yeah.
that out really worked for me. Sometimes I would find that like stupid or corny and something like Onward. I'm trying to think of like a good example from that maybe didn't work as well for me. But those always found I found that to be enjoyable and just seeing the like animation of like the transformation was really cool. Um, the only thing that really didn't sit well with me is Alberto's whole thing with his dad felt kind of like rushed. It's like it's mentioned and then alluded to, but then they have the fight where Luca kind of denounces him as a friend,
Yeah,
and
I love the fight, by the way. Like
yeah,
when
great,
he stabs him in the back, basically. That I thought that was really
yeah,
really well done because
yeah,
leading
heart
up to
wrenching,
that, Alberto's kind of like grating. He's like getting
yeah.
jealous and stuff. But then Luca just stabs him in the back at the worst moment. Like I think
Mhm.
that was handled well.
I thought so too, but then the reveal that like his dad hasn't been around, which I think everybody kind of saw coming,
Oh yeah,
um just felt like it really wasn't like elaborated on or touched on. And then at the end he's just kind of like, oh, I'm just going to stay with this, her dad. That's the thing, which I was kind of like, oh, okay, I guess that works, but I felt like that um wasn't fully baked for me in some sense, but
yeah,
it's just a small nitpick, honestly. Thought it
sure.
was enjoyable.
Yeah, in terms of like, so I liked how it starts. Like the whole uh, premise, the concept of these like mermaid-esque sea creatures being like fish shepherds, I thought was really funny. But overall, the underwater stuff ended up being quite undercooked because
Yeah.
undercooked is because we end up leaving it so fast and the world's
Sushi.
largely left. Um, I also thought the fantastical sequences, like when they're in the Vespa and like the glider, where it's like those kind of took me out of it because they kind of felt out of nowhere to me,
Hmm.
and also didn't add a whole lot to it. Like thinking back, like Pixar has those kind of frequently in movies, but in this in Luca, I don't know if they added too much. Also, one thing I noticed too, just meta wise, it's kind of funny to see a story at one of these uh, sea, fishing towns like this because notably there is not a flood of tourists in this movie, and in real life, these places largely, unfortunately, are subsumed by tourists and depend on that kind of tourist income. So I actually like this idealistic setting of kind of what used to be, you know?
Yeah. No, I agree. Dave, some people online couldn't help but point out how Alberto and Luca looks a lot like Elio and Oliver from Call Me
Yeah.
by Your Name, another movie set in Italy. Well, what do you think about that? Any thoughts? Care to comment?
Yeah, I mean, I see the comp, you know?
Yeah.
Pixar has really never made a nod to a same sex relationship at all.
Hmm.
And I still don't think they've really nodded at it here,
No, definitely not.
but the vibes are very similar.
Fair.
And I don't think we're getting a Call Me By Your Name sequel anymore, given what's happened to Army Hammer. So we'll take
No.
any Call Me By Your Name inspiration we can find.
Yeah. So I'm very much in line with you. I don't think they're necessarily like nodding at it directly, but maybe a short homage. So who knows? But anyways, Luca, if you have Disney Plus, which most people are, or at least more people are getting now, check it out. It's worth the
Right.
2 hours, I'd
Yeah.
say.
I would say this is kind of a tough hit for theaters, man. It would have been nice if this also got released in the in theaters. Could get this same thing
Yeah.
happen to Soul. Just because, animated movies do well at the box office, families like to go. And I'm sure families are very thankful to get this for free and they can occupy their
Yeah.
kids with it for a long time for free. But it would have been nice if this could have made some money at the box office. But on the other hand, we've had now 3 Pixar originals in a year and 3 months. That's never happened before.
Yeah, I know. They're pumping them out. So, anyways, Dave, we gotta wrap up there. This podcast is running along. But what should
Mm,
we listen to or watch for next week?
yeah, A24 Zola hitting theaters. Very excited about that. Sundance hit back in 2020. Also, the Tomorrow War, big blockbuster starring Chris Pratt. Paramount sold to Amazon. That'll be available on Amazon. And of course, probably most anticipated of all, No Sudden Move, the latest Steven Soderbergh movie with a stacked cast. It will be on HBO Max. So let's go. And maybe Lana Del Rey is releasing an album called Blue Banisters on the 4th of July. Who the hell knows?
Yeah, we'll see. If Lana wants to take a little time, I don't need the album. Just put it there. But
Yeah, we just got
anyways,
chemtrails.
I know.
Goddamn.
At Nostalgia Pod on Twitter, SoundCloud.com, and YouTube.com/Nostalgia Pod. We'll catch you next week.